welcome back to another episode of RC Icons. So today we're going to take the MRP 110 Pro out for a little rip. I call it a rip. We're not going to rip it. We're just going to drive it. So when I showed this car, I don't know, maybe it was 2 months ago now in a channel update video, I had gotten a lot of feedback from people that wanted to see this run. So this car, geez, I probably should have looked this up, but I think it came out 86-ish maybe. So it came out, MRP released this car essentially as a racing buggy to compete with the RC10. It's a two-wheel drive buggy. It's got a adjustable ball diff in the rear. It's an aluminum chassis car. It does have a lot of characteristics body-wise of like the SRB, and this car is unique in that it was offered where you could set it up as a mid-motor or a rear motor mounted car. So this was a race buggy back in its day, and for whatever reason it just didn't take off. So it was actually offered stock from the factory with a mechanical speed control that was forward and brake only. There was no reverse. So it was absolutely meant to race. I got this car from Jason at True Vintage. He did a video on this car where he disassembled it and put it together. He did the paint job. It's funny because I actually only just saw, I took it apart to put electrics in it, and he had put my name on the driver figure. So it says driver and then it says Keith. So yeah, there was a lot of chatter in the comments. People wanted to see this thing run. Now obviously with this being a, you know, whatever, 35-year-old buggy, almost 40 years old, we're not going to take this thing out and be jumping it hard and like running it really the way it was meant to run. It's more, this is more about let's just get it out to run. The plastics are old, the car is brand new. I'm not looking to destroy the car. I just want to give it a quick little putt. So that's the whole point of this video. The other thing is, so these wheels came, they're supposed to be like an aluminum chrome, and the centers are chipping out a little bit. So there is some work that I want to do to this car to just kind of take it to that next level. But I want to make sure, I want to run it first so that when I can bring it back in, strip the electrics out, refurbish the wheels the best that I can, get another coat of tire writing on it, silicone up the tires, and then it's going to go in the cabinet to spend the rest of its life there. So let me bring the camera over real quick. I'll show you what I did electric wise. This thing was a bit of a bear to get the electrics in. I had to disassemble almost the entire car to get the electrics in, but we pulled it off. So let me bring the camera over. We'll take a quick look at it real quick, and then we'll get it out for a run. All right, so I just looked it up real quick. So it is a ball diff in the rear. So it came with a mechanical speed control, forward and brake only, fully ball raced with a ball diff in the rear. And it was absolutely a race car that was supposed to compete with the RC10. Back in 85, 86 was its production year. Now they did a stage 2 version of this car in 1992 where the front end of the car changed to A-arms, and I believe the rear did as well. Still had the mid and rear motor design in it on the stage 2, but it wasn't really advertised on the box, but it was capable. So you can see there's your aluminum chassis. This thing is in great shape. Couple small scratches here and there, but you could literally spray that with some flat black paint if you wanted to, and it would look totally mint again. So here's our driver figure that Jason painted up. You can see my name on it. I don't know how I missed that the first time. So again, it looks just like a Rough Rider, right? It's got that, it's from that time period where, you know, it's got that SRB kind of look to it. So when I take the body off, so the servo sits down underneath here, and you can kind of see the arm. So this whole top plate had to come off, but the servo mounts to the top plate. So you imagine you have to get the top plate back on with the servo mounted to it and get the arm hooked up at the same time. And then this is where your servo would go for your mechanical speed control. I just have my 1060 down in there. I put a Dynatech motor on it. It's got 48 DP gears. The spur gear is 54 tooth, but it's going to a 46 tooth counter gear. And then I've got a 27 tooth pinion on it. So it's hard. So when I do the calculations, it's about a 5.02, I think, gearing. But I don't know what that counter gear is going to do in reference to that. And then inside, it's got an 18 and a 36 tooth, I guess another counter gear and main gear on the ball diff. So Jason always counts his teeth and numbers it. So it's got an 18 and a 36 inside, and then on these gears, I don't know if you can see it, but it says 46 and 54. And then, like I said, a 27 tooth pinion. So with all of those numbers, it's kind of impossible to me to figure out what the gear ratio is. So I don't know if this thing's going to be ballistic or if it's going to be slower than a snail. But the way that this is set up, it uses a lot of nuts, 3mm nuts, and you have to have a large pinion to get the motor to push forward enough to clear one of the gear nuts on the inside. So I tried a 19 tooth, couldn't get it to work. Then I went to a 24 tooth, still couldn't get it to work. So then I jumped up to a 27 and I was able to actually get the motor mounted. So let's bring this thing outside and we'll give it a little putt, see what it can do, and before we retire it for good. I'm going to throw a little bit of tape underneath the chassis real quick just to protect it. But other than that, I'll see you outside in just a minute. Actually, let me turn it on real quick. I'll show you.
Welcome to Noble Pro.
So this one should be Model 4, I think. One nice thing about the Nobles is I think you get 20 models. So turn this on, plug it in. So there's your steering and your throttle. Now that gear mesh is, you can hear it, it's probably a little bit tight, but it was so hard to get it meshed with that nut in there fighting me the whole time in the 27 tooth pinion that I figured we're literally going to run this thing for 3-4 minutes and we're not going to run it hard. So it doesn't really matter to me if it's a little bit tight. So we're just going to take it for a nice gentle putt, and we're going to bring it back in and do what we need to do to get this thing on the shelf. Okay, so I've got you at the first location. We're out with the MRP 110 Pro. Let's see what this thing can do. So you can hear that gear mesh is a little bit tight, like I said in the studio. Kind of is what it is. We're not going to get it going too crazy here. It definitely has some turning, like a race buggy would. So 27 tooth pinion on a 54 tooth spur. She's got some stank. She gets a little loose on this hot tire. $19.85, baby. Let's see if she'll handle the grass at all. It's a little bit long. So that's it for the Tarmac. We'll get you on some dirt here in a second the next location. She's running sweet. All right, location number 2 with the MRP 110 Pro. It's a little dirt area. So this car is real loose in the tail end. Sorry for the swear. Being a 2-wheel drive. It's probably like might be a little bit too rocky too. Oh. This car is super quick. I think it might be the gearing. Like I said in the last video, it's a 54 tooth spur going to a 36 tooth counter gear. And I've got a 27 tooth pinion on it. And I've kind of got the battery stuffed in there, so it's hard to keep the body on it. But at least we're running it. Jeez. That rear gearbox sits so low. Let's see if we can get it on a little bit of short grass over here. See what it does. She don't like the long grass, that's for sure. Yeah. That's never a good sound. Thought it might be a pinion mesh, but it's not. I think it just sits so low. Shocks could probably use some oil, so I never really did anything with this car since I got it from Jason. I didn't open it up or rebuild it or anything. I just thought it would be a cool car to give you guys a little running video. So this is going to be the only time it runs right now. So enjoy it. Yeah. Sounds like the diff. Oh. Drive shafts out. That will definitely cause an issue. Yeah, so we've got a drive shaft out. It's in my hand. At least we found it. So, not as epic as I was hoping for, but at least we got a running video out of it for you. These old cars, right? It's just one of those things. It kind of is what it is. You do the best you can with them. And it is what it is. At least we didn't break anything. We can very easily put that drive shaft back in. I noticed that the shocks were a little bit soft. So I didn't really want to rebuild the shocks before taking it back out because this is a one-run deal for this car. Now, this was supposed to be a race car that competed with RC10, right? And I think the gearing obviously shows that it would have the speed to compete in the right scenario. But you would definitely have to do some tuning and setup to it. So I think with the shocks, yeah, you can see there's no rebound at all. I think if the shocks were built right, or not necessarily built right, but if they had their oil in them and the spring tension was a little bit tighter and that rear end was a little bit higher up. Sorry, I don't even know if you were in frame there. But I think if those shocks were rebounding the way that they should, and the car wasn't in droop and it was actually sitting the way that it's supposed to, it probably would have done a lot better. But it is what it is. I'm really not interested in trying to make it better. I bought the car basically just because it's a vintage car and I love the looks. Now, you got to remember, this car came out in 84, 85, right? So the technology back then, coming from SRBs to stuff like this and the RC10 into the race world, is just absolutely epic. You know, I mean, 79 was the Sand Scorcher and the Rough Rider, and that was the first of the SRB chassis, right? So for 79 to 84, 5 years, technology certainly was moving forward at a rapid pace for these cars. So I'm happy with it. You know, I got a little run on the asphalt. I got a little bit of a run in the gravel and a little bit of a run in the short grass. Now, not absolutely what I was hoping for. Not marvelous, but still fun, right? And that's what this hobby's all about. So I'll see you back in the studio for closing. Yeah, so wasn't quite the run I was hoping for. Oh, it is what it is. Drive shaft's back in it. I still got to pull the electrics out. So, what do I say about that, right? It's, you know, it's just one of those cars. It's cool as hell. You know, for MRP to throw their hat in the ring and try to build a car that could compete with the RC10, which is literally just dominating everything back in its day. They definitely threw the kitchen sink at it. And not to say that the car wasn't capable, because it probably would have done a lot better if I had given the car more attention. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Jason putting this thing together. Don't get me wrong. It's just one of those cars. It's an old car, right? So I can see that the shocks are leaking a little bit of oil. The suspension is definitely a little bit soft in the end. Like, that should not stay down, right? So I think if I had actually set the car up for a run, made sure the shocks were rebounding the way that they should, made sure that gear mesh was good, I think we would have had a completely different outcome. With that being said, you know, look at the number of cars, right? This was about getting a light run with a 35-year-old car, and I think we accomplished that. And the Tarmac run, even though it was on tarmac in the sun with this paint, this metallic paint just kind of floating by me, it was absolutely awesome. Not disappointed by any stretch, more kind of let down for you guys, right? I get to look at the car every day and I absolutely love it. But as far as, you know, a vintage RC car and having it be, you know, a nice epic running video for you guys, I apologize, it just wasn't there. But I don't think it's the car's fault, I'll be honest. I think it's just lack of preparation on my part. I wasn't planning on ripping this car apart. I literally bought it just to put it behind the glass. Jason didn't want to run it. He thought that it might be a little bit too fragile, and I decided to go out on a limb and at least just run it back and forth a little bit for you guys, and then through the rear drive shaft and blah blah blah. Life goes on. So what's next for this thing? Exactly what I said at the beginning. So we're going to tear the electrics out of it. We did absolutely no damage to the car whatsoever, so I'm happy about that. We're going to tear the electrics out of it. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the wheels and tires, and then it's going behind the glass, and that's it. It's going to live the rest of its life there. It's not like this is a race car for today. It may have done a little bit better in a track situation versus that heavy gravel. When I started running on the gravel, I didn't realize that the rock was as loose as it was and as big as it was. And I immediately, with the Optima Mid Custom Special, got it into the field, and we ended up, getting a decent run out of that car because of that reason. And I think with this car, with it bouncing around in the rocks, it obviously didn't help it, and it didn't, it probably took a little bit away from when I actually did get it into the grass. The car feels great. That mesh was a little bit tight, but I don't think it was the mesh that was the problem. I think it was just the fact that the suspension wasn't recoiling back up, and that means the chassis is dragging, and anything that's going to be high in the ground is going to catch that chassis and be holding it back. I think if I had given it a little bit of setup time, then we would have had a completely different situation. I'm not going to do that now because I've got too many other projects that I want to move on to. And I'm just as happy to have this just kind of sits right there. I get to look at it anytime I want, But, and then the fact is, when I put the electrics in the car, I had to rip both rear arms completely off. So literally, Jason put the car together, but I ripped the car almost completely apart to get the motor in it, and then just kind of threw it back together without really looking at the setup. That would have been the time to kind of look at the shocks, get some oil in them, make sure they were rebounding right, blah blah blah. Life goes on. But yeah, I was happy to at least get it out for you guys. I hope at the very least it was intriguing for you. I don't know that you will end up coming back in the comments saying you enjoyed it, but at least I wasn't afraid to give it a little putt. So it is what it is. Let me know what you thought. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's what we got. So if you haven't already liked and subscribed and turned on your notifications, make sure you do. The next running video that's coming will be the Ford Ranger, and that run was absolutely awesome. I had a blast with that truck. Smile ear to ear the whole time. So they're not always like this, this is YouTube, and I don't edit out the garbage. I could just not even show you the video, and just trash the video and be like, never even ran the MRP 110, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not that kind of person. So I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly on this channel, and it's just the way it's going to be. So until next time with the next RC Icon, we'll see you soon. Thanks.